But
the first thing about PCI-DSS is that there's a lot of untrue perceptions out there about what it is and how to go about it and how to attain it. I remember around August, September, it seems as if the banks just suddenly woke up and everybody wanted to achieve certification by December. And a lot of people thought that it was, just something that we can just snap our fingers and all of a sudden we'll be certified. And the truth is that the few people who dared to try and tell them the truth were just, maybe you don't know what you're talking about, but I have a mandate and you must deliver it, and it was a bit of a challenge. So let's talk about the myths. The first one is that it's a piece of cake. What's the big deal? Okay, CBN has said we need to do it. We don't want to do it, but we'll do it, What's the big deal? It's not a piece of cake, actually. As Richard said, it's not easy. And so the sooner we come to that realization, the better for us. It's not impossible to attain. Ade has stood up and he's told us how they've done it. And they've done it with relative ease, but because of a number of things that he's highlighted and that I will highlight. Those things need to be in place to do it with ease. So it's not a piece of cake. It's not a walkover. There are many requirements that are painstaking and very specific that you must comply with. It's not about whether you want to or not. It's about what the standard says, adherence to the standard. And therefore, it's not a quick fix either. It's not something that you can just will to happen. It's not something also that technology alone will deliver. And so again, we saw a lot of people peddling these solutions, PCI-DSS in a box. A few of those vendors came to us. We hear you're doing PCI-DSS well. Just collaborate with us. We'll put in our solution, bang, your client is certified. It's not true. It's not true. Don't let them deceive you. There are a number of solutions that you will need to put in place, but there is no such thing as PCI-DSS in the box. And if you look at the stance of the PCI-SSC also, they warn you against those kind of solutions. Okay, so you must find specific solutions that address your specific needs. When you can find a solution that addresses a number of requirements, great. It's not just about this. And it's not just the technology. The configuring the technology is something else. We saw in a number of organizations, they had bought all the technology. Log management, intrusion protection, intrusion detection, everything was in place. But you go and look at the configuration, it doesn't meet the requirement. So not only does the vendor have to put in the technology for you, you've got to make sure that the vendor knows what the requirements are and that you also get involved to make sure that it is configured appropriately. So be careful with that. Some people also thought it wasn't anything major. And one of the things that we were warning people about is that, you have to have some deep pockets to get this thing to work. Because you do need to acquire technology. And in the case of NIMS, they were able to fast-track a lot of approvals. And so when we had discussions with a number of organizations who wanted it in 3 months, we said, is your management team ready to approve these things? Because our experience with some people had been, you get to that point where it's clear what you need, and then you sit down and wait. Because the first reaction from the management team is, you guys must be smoking something cheap. How much are we supposed to spend? It doesn't make sense to them because they couldn't understand. So it costs money because you are going to be acquiring some enterprise-wide solutions. So it is fairly major in terms of your expense requirements. So we had Ade stand up and say he had to be convinced, but once he was convinced, he made all the right decisions. So in their case, since we're using them as a case study, we had a situation where once in 2 weeks or maximum once in 3 weeks, we will have project steering committees and we will have an MD and 2 EDs and the project sponsor and maybe 1 or 2 members because this was top priority for them. That felt important. And I think one of the things that he talked about, which I think we should take away with us, no matter what level we are, we might have started 8 months ago, we might have started 3 months ago, is that it goes beyond just saying, I support. I'm in full support. There's no bank MD today that you will ask, are you supporting the initiative? You say fully. He will say fully, but you have to walk the talk. It's not just about saying I support. It's not even just about signing those requirements when they come. It's about engaging and understanding what's going on and trying to reinforce whatever is going on or whatever the PCI-DSS standard says by your own behavior and by your own interaction. You know, so that active engagement, that active support, that walking the talk is important. He talked about building it into people's performance systems. You know, it's key. We say what we can't measure, we can't manage. If you ask people to change their focus and begin to give more time to this, and at the end of the quarter, at the end of the 6 months, their appraisal is not going to have anything about this new project, they're not likely to be committed, because it's like they're doing you a favor, it's something extra. This is not what I'm going to be appraised with. So building it into your appraisal system, I think, is critical, not just for attainment, certification attainment, but even beyond that. Another critical success factor is the scoping. What we find is that usually when we talk about scoping the CDA environment, your card data environment, most people think they just bring out their network diagram that they did maybe 1 year ago, forget that a lot of new systems have been added, new servers have been added, things have been moved around. And so the challenge is that if you don't get this right to start with, then you miss your scope. You don't even have your target clearly done. It's worth spending time and doing this in a painstaking, effective manner. Because if you don't get this right, as you will see, maybe it's when your QSA comes that he starts to discover there's a server here, and then you're looking at thinking, there is? Oh, okay, yes, these things happen. We've seen them happen. Okay, so getting this right is really, really important. Scoping correctly. Make sure that you do that well. Put your best foot forward, essentially. What tends to happen with projects like this is that all the unit heads, they don't want to put their best guys on this project, because that means that, you know, the guys in the network, I won't have his use for everyday solutions or everyday requirements. So they sometimes put the guys that nobody really wants, and that doesn't help the project. Because it's so critical, you need to really try and put forward your best guys. Form the team, let them understand that it's important, and let them understand that it has to be done with urgency. So the resourcing is important in terms of people, and of course in terms of the technology acquisition that you also need to get. Technology matters. It matters a lot here. You know, there are some standards, even IT-related standards, that are very process-focused, and that you need to get technology to enhance it, but it's not mandatory. I'll give an example. ISO 27001 is an information security standard. If you put in place technology, it enhances it, but they don't look at the technology, they look at the process. PCI-DSS, you cannot attain it without putting in place technology. Just forget it, it's a pipe dream. And you cannot attain it without putting in technology that addresses the specific requirements. So technology matters. You will need to be acquiring solutions, deploying them, configuring them, to know the standard. Sometimes, you know, myself and my colleagues, we're still amazed when we engage with the industry. We know that virtually every bank has started in one process, one level or the other. But when you talk to them about the standard, a lot of them don't really understand the standard. They don't really know what the requirements are. Yeah, you have consultants, but it's good for you also to know what it is that you are trying to deal with. Okay? And there are 3 different types of standards. The one that we're focusing on in the industry right now is PCI-DSS. But I expect that as the impact of this begins to permeate, you know, these standards will also begin to come to the fore. And all the service providers who are in these areas would also need to start to conform to these standards. So we need to understand the standards. We need to know what the requirements of this is. You know, it's not just technology. So what is the process that you need to transit through to get to certification? What are the things that need to change? What areas of the business is it going to affect? Not just IT. And that's why you shouldn't make it, quote unquote, an IT project. The people in risk will need to be involved. The people in HR will need to be involved. The people in other areas will need to be informed. And at the end of the day, everybody needs to understand how it affects their own work, their own job. So understand that it is process. Do the actual work. One of the challenges that I see a lot of people face is that there's so much hype around this that we don't actually start to do the work. You know, we're just talking about it. We're talking about it. We have consultants. We're all talking about it. You know, we're talking about the fact that we have to get compliance. And our dashboard is reaching 50%. Then 1 month later, we're 17%. And we're just creeping up. You know, we need to just roll up our sleeves, get the teams, to work, and have a zero tolerance policy. You know, if you assign work to people, let there be accountability. Let them know that if they don't deliver, there are consequences. Don't just leave it open-ended, because this is key to the organization. Choose the right partners. They say marry in haste, repent in leisure. Okay, so choosing the consultants, the partners that you work with for PCI-DSS is also important. Choose people who can deliver. If you make the wrong decision, it has far reach, and avoid them. So we said, have top management commitments, have a sponsor. But what if you have a sponsor who can't take any decisions? We have meetings, hey, that's the problem. Okay. So what do we do about it? Okay. We'll see now. Nothing ever gets done. It's very important. You know, even if the person is so-called a member of the management team, we all know that not all fingers are equal. You can have ED and you can have ED. So I go back to names again, and I say that for us, the experience there was great. Not only did we had the MD who was actively driving it, we had a very effective project champion who, well, not only because I believe her evaluation depended on it, but because she was interested and she was a very conscientious person. She drove the process effectively. That helped us as well. Another common pitfall is this. And you know, sometimes I think that, forgive me, but I think the banks like to just hear people overpromise and underdeliver. Can you do it in 3 months? Yes. Are you sure? Yes. Okay, we choose you. All of you know. You know, they know, we all know. We can't do it in 3 months. I know a number of banks that made people sign. They asked us to sign. We said we will not sign, because it doesn't just depend on us. It also depends on you. So we said, okay, if you want us to commit to 3 months, will you also commit that when we send something for approval, it will be approved? They said we can't commit to. So we too can't commit. But a few people actually signed. December has come and December has... It's gone now. How many people are certified? So let's be real. Let's be real. What is realistic and what is achievable? What really is realistic, and whatever happens, you know, you do it well, you don't do it well, once we have that sheet of paper, it's actually even more harmful than not even having that sheet of paper at all, because it creates a false sense of confidence. You know, so let's be real. Let's really understand what it takes and try and make sure that you're tracking your benefits. Make sure you have a compliance dashboard that you are tracking regularly. And please, when you're tracking your compliance, try and make sure you validate it. Because we've had, again, situations where, you know, the team is tracking, we're at 99, 95%. QSA comes in and says, actually, you are 32%. And that's a big shock. What's the difference? QSA will always say, show me. You ask, do you have this requirement in place? Yes, we do. Okay, show me. Then you go and look at the configuration. Yeah, the solution is there, but all the settings are default settings. So it doesn't help me. Has anybody ever checked? Nobody checked. The vendor just said we've installed. Great, fine. Pay, bye-bye. Okay, so track it realistically. Make sure that it is properly validated. You can try and take shortcuts, but usually they lead to a lot of confusion. A lot of confusion. You know, it's a process. You have to follow through the process. You can fast track, but not necessarily take shortcuts. Don't take PCI-DSS as the be-all and end-all. Don't make it the silver bullet. You know, some people try and do everything that needs to be done in the organization from an IT and security point of view. Put it under the PCI-DSS umbrella and try and get everything approved at the same time. There is still life after PCI-DSS. There will still be threats and vulnerabilities after PCI-DSS. Don't lose focus. At the end of the day, PCI-DSS, from a standard point of view, is about securing cardholder data. You can extend it to secure other critical data that is not necessarily cardholder data, but keep your eye on the ball. Don't get distracted with, you know, on unnecessary technology acquisitions or even team squabbles. Keep your eye on the ball. you have to achieve 100% compliance. So the standard, as robust as it is, was created not yesterday, sometime, the new version, sometime last year. New vulnerabilities and new threats have come up after that. Okay, so don't let's confuse 100% compliance with security. But compliance does help with security.